Bandit here. Welcome to the Bandit Flight Simmer channel, and today we're back in the Diamond DA62 on our next leg of our trip around the world in Microsoft Flight Simulator. And we're starting off in Severny, Russia, and this is where we ended up diverting to with the engine failure last episode. And we got our engine fixed, and so we're going to be departing out of here today and heading off to place called Ashgabat Turkmenistan, and it's about a 4-hour trip, and we're going to do something again a little different today. Going to do some IFR navigation, and we're going to be doing it old school without the GPS. So we're going to pretend that our GPS isn't working. We got our engine fixed, but now our GPS is broken, so apparently we can get a spare part in Ashgabat. And so in order to get there, though, we're going to have to do some old school navigation using just NDBs and VORs. So I'll go over our route today. I'll just show you a quick overview of it here. And I'm using Navigraph charts. So we're going to be, basically to do this, we need to go from VOR to VOR. And you can see these are VORs here that I've planned, and I did one airway here where I just wanted to show you that you can navigate usually VOR to VOR. It's ideal if you can go in a straight line, and we could do that here, but you can also do airways, and most of the airways are made up of these waypoints, and we can't navigate to them random waypoints using the VOR if we can't go. Well, we could go out to here, but then how do you navigate this portion here if you wanted to do that airway? You have no way of linking VOR track to that. So, but you could do these two airways. You can just track out this VOR airway to Bizna here, and then you can switch over to this VOR station and track inbound to this one. So you can do offset legs like that if you need to, and I'll just show you how we switch over that en route. So that's going to be the plan today. It's about a 4-hour trip, and so we'll just show you the highlights of the navigation to facilitate our route today. And another important point is when you're looking at the navigation, you need to look at charts. And if I go to the charts for Severny here, and we would look at for our departure charts, we can't use ones that say RNAV up here. That's an RNAV departure, requires GPS, so you need to sort through the ones that are going to work for your route that use traditional naviads, which are non-RNAV departures here. So the one I've chosen to get us on our route is the REMCA 1 uniform, and REMCA is on our airway heading out of here. So this is what we're going to use to get going on our airway using traditional navigates. And I'll go through the departure as we get set up for that. So anyway, let's hop in the cockpit and get the airplane fired up. Okay, before we get started here, I just want to say if you enjoy the content, make sure you hit the thumbs up button down below. And if you want to make sure that you're going to join us for continuing legs of this trip around the world in the Diamond, make sure you hit subscribe and sign up for the notifications, and that way you won't miss any legs that we do on the trip. Really appreciate anyone who joins us for the flight around the world. Another thing today I'm going to be using is a new input device I just recently got, and it's called the Class Echo, and I'll just insert a picture right here just to show you what it looks like. It's a little box with a touchscreen on it and a rotary knob, and it allows you to access a lot of features on the airplane without actually having to use your mouse anymore. So I can just touch a selection on the screen, like for the autopilot stuff. I can pick heading and then use the rotary knob to adjust the heading, and same thing with altitude and vertical speed, and I can activate the autopilot. There's all kinds of different options for the interface with the airplane. So it's I've only tried it for a couple flights, and it's been really good so far. So it really makes the user experience a little bit better. And if you'd like to see, I'm not going to do a full review. You're gonna see me making changes, and I'm not going to be using the mouse to do it. But it's not going to be a full review of the device. If you'd like to see a full review of the Class Echo and how it works in the sim, just leave a comment, and I'll definitely try to do a video on that if there's enough people interested. So let's get things started, and we'll get going. Okay, again, before we fire up the aircraft, just to save some gas, I'm going to go over the departure here first. We can talk about that because I don't want to waste any gas and talk about it with the aircraft running. So this is a traditional Navi departure. It's going to use the WK NDB, and also we're going to use the ILS frequency to get our DME. And then we're going to use a VOR frequency once we get en route. So if you see here for the REMCA 1 uniform, which gives us to REMCA, which is on our initial airway, we need to climb straight ahead and then at or above 3,490 feet, but not before 4.9 miles from the departure and the runway. Left turn back to the WK beacon and join a holding pattern if you are unable to get to 10,000 feet. So you have to be at 10,000 feet before you continue on to REMCA. And then a right turn 151 track to intercept the 106 bearing from WK to REMCA. So, and then we have to be at REMCA at or above flight level 130. So basically we're going to depart out here to at least 4.9 miles and then do a left turn back to the beacon. And then we're going to pick up our outbound track 106 to REMCA. And then by the time we get to REMCA, we'll switch over to the VOR, which is the first VOR on our airway, which is this one here, which is Mike Kilo Lima. And then we'll use that to navigate from REMCA to the VOR. So that's the plan right now. So that's going to be our departure. We're initially going to set our altitude. We're going to plan an altitude of flight level 170. So that will be our departure. So we need to tune up the 408 for the NDB. And also to get the distance, we are going to use the ILS frequency. So when we came in, we had the ILS 26 here, and it's from the threshold of 26, which is the departure and the runway for runway 08. And so that's going to, if we tune that ILS frequency, we're going to get DME also. So that'll allow us to measure our distance before we make our turn back to the NDB. So we need to tune that up. And then we also need to tune up the VOR for Mike Kilo Lima, the first VOR we're going to use as well. So we need to set up those 3 navigads for our departure, and then we'll be good to go. Okay, so now I think we're ready to get started up, and we've gone over the departure and procedure, and then we can get up on our way. Okay, I've already turned on the fuel, so we get our electric master on, and it's good. We'll get our avionics masters on, alternators on, turn on our position lights. We'll cancel out master caution. Turn on our boost pumps. And that should be good, just to prime the lines there. And we'll clear to the right and to the left. And we'll start the right-hand engine. And start the left-hand engine. Looks good. We'll get our avionics master on. Set our flaps, and now I'm going to set some initial things on here. So I'm going to go to there's a navcom page, so you're not going to see me using the mouse to do anything, but I need to set my navigation radios for the departure here. So I'm going to get those ready. So the first one we need to tune is the NDB. So if I'm going to go to my ADF and I'm going to type in 408 and transfer that. So 408 is in, and need to tune up the ILS frequency for nav1, which is going to be 1087. So I'll put that in nav2 actually. 1087. And then I need to tune up my VOR for our first leg, which is going to be to Mike Kilo Lima, which is 113.2, so I'll put that in nav 1. Okay, and then I need to come down here and set up my navigation display. So I am going to go to the PDF page here on bearing 2. I'm going to put nav 2, which is our DME. On bearing 1, I'm going to put the ADF 408, and that's what we need to use to navigate off of. So initially, and our first outbound course, so I can go to my Class Echo here and I can set my course, and my outbound radio is going to be 106. So I really like this device, how you can select those things and then change them with the rotary dial. It makes things a lot easier. So I think we have our navigates all set up. I'll go in here and we'll get some weather. So I'm not going to use this display at all, except for getting weather and stuff like that. So let's put in our airport. We are at URMG. So our weather data is right now, winds are out of the east. Cav OK, 23 degrees, QNH is 1012. So yeah, that's looking pretty good. So let's change our altitude units to HPA. Good, that's set. We'll, so if I put in my altimeter here, I can adjust that on my Class Echo. And if I want to go to the transponder, I can set 7000, and we'll leave that as our frequency, and then we'll put it on altitude alert. Okay, so I think we're all ready to taxi. So let's head out to runway 08. Parking brakes released. Turn our taxi light on. That's one of the things that's not mapped to the Class Echo is the lights, but I think they're adding stuff to it to add more switches and stuff like that. Mostly it's for autopilot interface and for using the GPS and the Garmin 1000 screens. So, and there's still a lot of functions I'm getting used to. So I've only done one practice flight with it so far. It was just a short flight. So. Okay, so let's taxi out to the end of the runway, and I'll check in with you there when we're ready to take off. Okay, here we are at the end of the runway, so a couple more things before we take off. I'm going to set my heading of 080, and I'm going to set my altitude of 17,000 feet. Probably hear the rotary dial going in the background there. And so yeah, that looks good. I'm going to turn on our landing light. And some of these other functions, like I noticed I can do pitot heat is on. I can set that. Turn on the boost pumps. So, flaps are set for takeoff, pumps are on, landing lights on, altitude set, heading set, so I think we're ready for takeoff, so let's go. At full power. pressures are good. 80 knots. Rotate. Plus the rate. Gears up. 20 knots. Get the flaps up. Activate my autopilot.
Engaging autopilot.
Engage heading select. Engage flight level change. And we will set the speed for a 100 knot climb there. So autopilot's engaged, heading select, flight level change 100 knots. Bring our power back to climb power. And we will shut off our boost pumps. So gear is up, flaps are up, boost pumps are off, and shut off our landing lights, and yeah, looking good. So now we just continue on this heading till we get out to 4.9 DME, and then we'll make our turn back to the NDB. So I'll check in with you there at the turn, and then track back inbound, and I think we should have no problem getting to 10,000 feet before we get to the NDB for the first outbound leg to Remke there. So I'll check in with you as we make the turn. Okay, so we're coming up to 4.9 miles, and just make a left turn, heading select, get that going. We don't need the DME anymore, so I'm going to go down and get rid of that. Here, two. Just going to take it off. And we're just going to use our ADF. So keep the heading coming around, and we're just going to turn back to our number one needle, which is the ADF, to go back to WK. So select it back to there. Yeah, we're climbing pretty good, so we should. Just adjusting my heading, fine-tune it. Okay, so now we're tracking back to the beacon, and then when we see the beacon needle swing, then I'm going to track outbound to intercept the course for the VOR, or for the NDB outbound. Okay, so we'll just continue this climb. We're tracking back into the station, and I'll check in with you just before we make the turn to track outbound. Okay, so we're just tracking still inbound here. Hopefully we're going to get close to it. I just shut off the wind in the little mini map display here, because we really wouldn't have those if the GPS wasn't working. So we're getting closer to the needle here. I'm just going to find my heading. So as soon as we hit the needle, we'll turn to track outbound at about 106 degrees, and so should be swinging here momentarily. Now the course that I have in there with the VOR, that's not really anything. That's just a reference for what I want to track outbound. So there's the needle swinging. So I'm going to adjust my heading to go outbound. So I'll put a little intercept on there. And so now we're going to try to pick up that 106 degree radial outbound off the NDB. I'll explain how that works here as we. So you want to go a little bit left to intercept your track, because we're going outside the turn here, outside the radial for the turn over the station here. And you can see we're just NDB needle continuing to swing here. So we got an intercept on our track here, and what we're going to do is we're going to keep this intercept heading on, and we are at 10,000 feet, so we're good to continue on. So we're going to keep this going until the tail of this needle lines up with the course that we want of 106, and then we'll turn on a heading and track that outbound. So I'll just watch that tail continue to rise here. You see it continuing up here. So as soon as it lines up with the head of this needle here, which is just a reference, it's not tracking, this needle is not tracking anything as VOR. Not yet anyway, not till we tune up the VOR station. Okay, so the heading, gonna start easing it off a little bit for the intercept here. So see as the needle's getting closer. Over, it's almost over to where we want to be. Now we're just going to fly that outbound. So that's our 106 track outbound off the NDB. And then once we get up a little higher, we should be able to pick up the VOR as we get a little bit closer. So I want to make sure that needle stays in line with the track here. So if I want to make the needle, so now it's gone a little bit too far to the left, so if I want to make it bring it back this way, I need to go select my heading further to the right to bring the needle back. That's pretty close. So yeah, it looks pretty good. Altitude is good. We're going to be 13,000 feet, so that's looking good. We've still got a Remca is still a little bit of a ways there. So now what I'm going to do is put on bearing 1 here. I'm going to put, I'll put it on bearing 2, and we'll put in our VOR, and there it is. Mike Kilo Lima, and we're picking it up. That's on nav 1. And so their VOR is centered there. So yeah, that looks pretty good. That's VOR 1, so that is our track that we want, 106. And I think what I'll do is I'll select nav, and we will track outbound, or track the, so if I select nav here, it should track the VOR. So there we go, nav, VOR, so now it's tracking the VOR, which is our 106 radial. We're just a little bit off, so it's going to fine tune it. Then we'll be tracking our 106 radial inbound to Mike Kilo Lima. So we're almost on it. Remember, using these traditional nav aids, especially NDBs, the accuracy is the tolerances are pretty high, like plus or minus 4 or 5 degrees. So that's why you see these little deviations. So even though we're pretty close to the 106 radial outbound, we were a little bit off of what the VOR was saying. So it makes a small correction there. So it's not a big deal. That's how those are designed. Have certain tolerances to them. You just want to more or less be in the ballpark of where you need to be. So within the errors and limitations and capabilities of the radio nav aids. So now we're on that track. We're coming up to 1,000 feet to go, and we're just going to follow this track in VOR mode up to the next VOR, which is Mike Kilo. We've got about 80 miles to go. Leveling off. Everything looks pretty good so far. So we level off. We'll check everything's set up for cruise properly, and then what I'll do is I'll go through a ground speed check, because we need to want to make sure that we're flying an appropriate ground speed. We don't know what the winds are actually. We don't know what. We don't have a GPS ground speed readout here, so basically, we want to make sure that we're not into some headwind that we weren't planning on. Otherwise, we could be really tight on gas. So when we level off here, I'll show you a ground speed check to just a little how goes it to see how we're making it on our flight. Okay, so we've leveled off here. We've set our cruise power 75%. lights are good. Shut off that taxi light there. Everything looks good. Temperatures and pressures are good. Got lots of gas. True airspeed's 188. We're still tracking the VOR. We've got about 67 miles to go. And yeah, so let's do a little ground speed check here. So the way we do that is I'll use the timer here. So I'll put the timer. And what we will do is I will start the timer and we'll note our DME when I start the timer. So we started at 65 and then we will run the timer and we'll run it for 1 minute and then 3 minutes and show you what the different speed calculations are. It's more accurate the longer you run it, and the further you're away from the station the more accurate it is as well because of the slant range of the VOR. So I missed 64, so we'll get it at 63. Start. There we go, 64. So we started our timer at 64 DME. We'll run it for a minute and see what we get for ground speed. Now when I look at the, so I did run a sim brief for this and we're on this leg and we should have, for this leg we've got a direct to the beacon. We should have a true airspeed of 184 and a ground speed of 208. So let's see how close we are to that. So our 185 is our true airspeed. So let's see what our ground speed is. So I'll get the distance at a minute and then I'll get it again at 3 minutes. So we're just coming up on a minute. 60.7, so that's a difference of 3.3. I'll just get my trusty calculator here. Times by 60 to get our ground speed, and I got 198. So with a true airspeed 185 and a ground speed of 198 shows us getting a little bit of a push here, but not as much as the flight plan said. So let's check at 3 minutes what our calculation is going to be. So I'll check in with you there as we hit 3 minutes and we'll do that calculation. Okay, we're just coming up on 3 minutes and DME for that. 54.3 we'll call it. So that's going to be 9.7 nautical miles in 3 minutes, and this one we multiply by 20. And that gives our ground speed of 194. So that is less than what we had on the flight plan, so the winds could be a little bit less. But we do have a tailwind, so we're getting a little bit of a push here. And just out of curiosity, we can just cheat and go back to the map here and see what our actual ground speed is. Oh, 196. So there we go. So it is pretty close. So that's. Like I said, I'm not going to use the map, but we'll just use that to verify what our calculation was. So, yeah, so that's pretty close. And so you want to do that periodically every leg, just to, as a how goes it, make sure things are looking pretty good or pretty reasonable anyway. Because if we actually had a headwind instead of a tailwind, that could make a huge difference on our fuel calculations. So anyway, that's it for our ground speed check. So what I'll do, we got 50 miles to go to the beacon, so I'll check in with you there as we make the first turn over a VR. And so I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, we're coming up to our first VR. There is the Caspian Sea. The mountain's still off to our right there. And so we're going to look at our chart here. Figure figure out where we need to turn. So we're just coming up to this VOR here, and our outbound radial is 109 degrees. It's hard to read there, and so that's what we're going to be making our turn when we go over top. So what we're going to do is we're coming up to 3 miles. We're going to watch the needle swing. As soon as the needle swings, I'm going to change my course to 109, which is only 3 degrees. So, and you'll see the DME is not going to go to 0 either. So you're because of the slant range, it's actually there we go. So we're in what's called the Kona Confusion, which is basically an area where the signal is going straight up, so we're not going to get any DME. And so we're lost that data, so what I'm going to do is go to heading select, or we're going to alter my course to 109. There's my course, and yeah, we got our needle swing, and we're going outbound. So now it should make some minor adjustments to pick up that track outbound. And you see the DME is back, and so we passed that Kona Confusion where we lost the signal. And the autopilot should just, it's in roll mode, so I need to go back to nav mode. Probably when we lost the thing there, so I go back to nav, pick up the VOR, now it's going to make that final adjustment. So here we're tracking course 109 outbound from the VOR. Now, because we're not doing a straight VOR to VOR here, so we're going to this Bisna intersection, and so we need to figure out how far Bisna is. So we need to make this turn inbound to the next station at it's 45 and 35, so 80 miles from the Mike Kilo Lima VOR is going to be Bisna, and then we will make it an inbound turn on a track of 156 to track inbound to the next VOR. And that is a frequency of 115, so I can set that up so that it's ready for when we hit the 80 miles. So now we're back continuing tracking outbound, and we've got a little bit to go, so I'll check in with you again when we make the turn at Bisna. Okay, we're coming up on 80 miles, so I've tuned the other VOR, Bravo Alpha Kilo, and I set our course for nav2 to 156. So basically, we're still tracking the radial outbound 109 from the Mike Kilo Lima VOR, and then just as we approach 80, I'm going to switch the CDI over, and that will swap over to nav2, and that should have our course. And it'll as soon as I do that, it'll just go to roll mode, so it'll just stay on current roll attitude on the autopilot. And so when we're about a mile back, so right now I'm going to switch it over. And there's our next VOR. Oh, and it actually didn't switch to roll mode. It locked right on, so there we go. So now it's making the turn to track our inbound to our next VOR, which is 114 miles away. That's about right. I think it was 115 on the chart. So it's as simple as that. I thought it was going to go to roll mode when you switch VORs, but it just locked on to the next one, so that's fine. And off we go. So now we're navigating inbound to our next VOR. And if we look on the chart here, so if I bring the chart over, so now we're tracking outbound 156, and that's inbound to this VOR here, and then we'll continue on our track here. So anyway, that's the basics of using the NDB navigation to get out of here, VOR navigation, how you could track different airways to intercept another airway, and then crossing over the VORs. It's pretty self-explanatory, so from here on in. So I'm going to continue on, and I don't think there's going to be too much scenery to see as we fly over the Caspian Sea here, and then it's pretty much desert over here. So what I'll do is I'll check in with you, and we'll go through our approach planning into our destination when we get to near the top of descent. So anyway, I'll check in with you there and see how it's going. I might sign on for a couple other quick aircraft checks as we approach there, but for the most part, I think we're covered most of the navigation techniques for VOR navigation today. So I'll see you in a bit. Okay, we're just coming up to the next VOR, back out VOR, and we got quite a large, about a 60-degree track change here. So I'll just go over the procedure for that before we reach our destination. So coming up, we're tracking the VOR. We're just going to come up. We're going to lose the VOR in that Kona Confusion. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to center my heading, and I'm going to go to heading mode. And you'll see the heading mode change. So now, as soon as we lose the VOR, I'm going to heading select myself around to 092 is our next track. And then I'll change the course, and then we'll re-engage VOR. And I'm using the Class Echo input device, so you're not going to see the mouse changing anything on the screen here. So we're just waiting for the loss of signal from the VOR station. And you can see the DME still counting down. There we go, no data. So we're in that Kona Confusion. So now I'm just going to change my heading to 092, which is our initial track. And I'm going to dial in my course to 092, and you'll see now we're picking up the needle again, so I'm going to put on a 092 for the course. I'm going to go back to my heading. I'm going to actually bring the heading around a little bit further just to re-engage that course, so we get a little bit of an intercept going on there. So slowly that needle will, I'll put a little bit more heading on. Slowly that needle and course bar will line up. And then I'll just re-engage the VOR nav. So you see it starting to come in there now. We're still in heading mode, and as soon as the course bar comes close to center, I'm just going to re-engage nav mode. You'll see the autopilot switch over to VOR. So there's VOR, and now it's going to pick up that track, 092 outbound. So that's the procedure I'll use for doing turns overhead VORs to pick up your next outbound track. Might be a different procedure to use. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a diamond pilot per se, so I'm not 100% sure of the procedures for using the autopilot, but that's the procedure I have come up with for doing station crossings on the VOR. So that's that. Now we'll take a look at our fuel. So our fuel is down to a point where we can start our transfer. So we'll go down here and we'll turn on our pumps. So pump 1, pump 2, get the advisory, and there we go. So we'll transfer our fuel over, everything's looking good, and we got about 115 miles to go on the leg here. And while we're here, I'm just going to go over maybe just a little bit about this Class Echo input device. So I'm still getting used to it, and there's a lot of things you can do with it. And you just saw I was doing the heading, so if I want to change my heading, I just select heading on the screen. I can change my heading bug. If I want to change my altimeter, I just select that. You can see the altimeter change. So back to standard. If I want to change my altitude, I select that, and I just use the rotary knob to change my altitude. So lots of things you can do there. I changed my course earlier, so yeah, it's a great input device, and there's multiple screens on here, and I can go to the GPS screen, and now it accesses all the Garmin functions here. So if I want to, for example, put the synthetic vision back on, I just select the button on here, to select synthetic vision, and I can put synthetic terrain. That's button number 2 at the bottom there. There we go. We're back to synthetic terrain. Now I took that off because realistically we wouldn't have that if we had the GPS, so I can go back and put back or get rid of that function there and go back, and then hit the back button. So all these buttons are accessible on the Touch Echo, and then you can use the rotary knob to change things. So they have different panels on here to control different things, like the navcom and the navcom page. And if you look up at the top right, my comm frequencies, and I can select standby frequency, and I can put in 1215 and transfer that over. And there you see, transfers over 1215. And if I need to change my transponder, I can select that, and I can put in a different code, like 1234, and enter. And you see at the bottom there, my transponder code switch from 7000 to 1234. So it's a great input device. I'm starting to pick up a lot of uses for it, and it allows me to input most things on the plane. I'd say 90% of the stuff I can access without having to actually use the mouse and scroll wheel. I can just use the touchscreen on the Class Echo and the rotary knob to change things. So far it's been really cool. Really enhances the usefulness and immersion of flying this airplane. It works really well for the GA aircraft. I tried it in Cessna Citation, and it's not set up for that. It's mostly set up for GA aircraft, for the Garmin 1000 and the Garmin GSN 530 and the GSN 430 aircraft. So like the Cessnas, anything that has a Garmin 1000 system in it. So it's more set up for the GA aircraft for sure. It does have some functionality in the jets, but not very much. And I think that might be coming. I think they can actually add those aircraft, but they're not there yet. So if you'd like to see a full review on it, where you actually see me use the touch screens and how it interfaces with the aircraft, I would definitely wouldn't mind doing that. That require putting a camera set up on the Class Echo so that you can see the functionality of that. But I could definitely try to do that. And if you'd like to see that, just let me know in the comments, and I'll try to set that up. I might do it anyway, just as an experiment to see, working with 2 different video feeds. So anyway, that's it. Now we got the remainder of our cruise portion, and a little bit to go, probably about another hour and a half, 2 hours till we hit the top of descent. So I'll check in with you there, and we'll go over our approach planning, and we're going to plan a VOR approach at our destination today. So I'll see you in a little bit. Okay, we're back, and we're just going to start planning our arrival into Ashgabat Turkmenistan here, about 100 miles back from the VOR, and we need to start planning our descent. And I'm going to treat this as uncontrolled, so normally you might have ATC that will be able to give you a lower safe altitude that you can go to based on your radar position, but we're going to do everything as if we're uncontrolled here. So I need to figure out when I can safely descend. There is terrain to the north is pretty flat, but there is some mountains. We're heading off in this area here. There is some mountainous terrain just off to the south, so we need to figure out when we can start making our descent. So initially, if I look at our low chart here, coming in, and we're probably somewhere about here. Well, we're halfway along this leg here, and if I look at the lowest safe altitudes, these little numbers here represent that's 8,600 feet, that's 9,900 feet to give you safe altitude in this area. So based on this track coming in, the lowest safe altitude I could probably go to initially is let's say 10,000 feet, and that would give us terrain clearance coming in this direction here, but I need to get down lower than that. So what can I refer to for that? Well, I can go to the VOR chart, that we're going to use. And if I look at the chart here, it's got a minimum safe altitude based on the Ashgabat VOR, which is what we're navigating off. And basically, if I'm in this area here, 3,000 feet is the lowest safe altitude because there's less terrain. But if I'm in this area, I can lowest safe altitude is actually 11,800 feet within 25 miles, and that's because of the mountainous terrain down here. So I need to figure out what I want to do is position myself so that I'm in this area, so within 25 miles, so I can go down to 10,000 feet initially, and then as soon as I get within 25 miles of the VOR, I can go down to 3,000 feet, but I want to make sure I'm in this area here. So right now, we are tracking inbound on a course of 113. So that is, we need to be tracking 115 or to the north of that. So we actually need to be 114 is probably, or sorry, inbound of 116 is probably going to put us in this area. So that would probably be the safest bet. You can go right on this line, but I might as well pick up an inbound track of 116, and then that's going to mean that we're tracking inbound like that. So that we're going to be, the tail of the needle will be 296, which will be up in this direction here. So we're always on the tail of the needle tracking inbound, so we need to be in this area. So yeah, if I do an inbound track of 114, that should put us in this safe area here, and we can track this end all the way down, and then we'll talk about the approach. So in order to do that, I would request a clearance to track that radial inbound, and then all I got to do is, sorry, 116 is the radial I want. So I go to my course and I dial in my course of 116. Had the little altitude jump there, standard Microsoft Flight Simulator thing. So now it's going to do a little left turn, and it's going to pick up that track, so it's going to put us in that safe area. So basically, anytime I want now, I can descend down to 10,000 feet, and then in 25 miles, I can descend down to 3,000 feet. So that's my descent planning. So to do that, let's say if I want to do 1,000 feet per minute. So we're doing about 3 miles a minute. So I need to lose 7,000 feet to get to 10. So that would be 7 times 3, 21 miles. So and I want to beat that at 25 miles back. So 25 plus 21. So if I start my descent at about 46 miles, so let's round it up to 50 miles, 1,000 feet per minute, that should work out pretty good. And so that our descent planning is taken care of. We're getting lined up for a safe descent, and so next we can look at the approach. So the way I'm going to shoot the approach now, this approach is depicted. You normally require GPS to get to these fixes here, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do a procedure turn, which is not depicted here on this chart, but I'm going to make one up. And so we cross over this beacon, the VOR right here, and we'll just track outbound on this radial. And what we'll do is we'll go out to the 8 miles here, and then we'll just do a 45-degree offset for about a minute, turn back around in 45 degrees, and re-pick up this track inbound, and we'll descend to the lowest altitude we can do it. So as long as we're north east of this track line here, which is also the 294 is going to be fine for that. So we can do everything at 3,000 feet. So I can descend to 3,000 feet, I can track outbound 3,000, do my procedure turn, come back, intercept inbound, all at 3,000 feet, and then once I'm established inbound within 8 miles, I can continue my descent profile. So that's the plan for the approach right now, and we'll go through that as we get a little closer. So that's our approach, descent and approach planning for now. And next thing we can do is let's just get some weather. I think just want to make sure that's the runway they're going to be using. So if I go to put in our UTAA, Ashgabat, and look at the weather data, and the winds are 220 at 6, good visibility, 29 degrees, QNH is 1014, so yeah, I think the winds do favor that runway, so that's the approach we're going to plan, so it should be no problem. So let's continue inbound. I will talk to you once we're on the initial descent. We can see how things are going, and then we'll continue on with the approach. So I'll see you in a little bit. Okay, so we're just coming up on 50 miles, and we are on, you can just see the tail of the needle is on 296. So if we go back to our chart here, and that is going to put us up in this area right here. So 295 is this radial, we're on the tail up here. 296 is just up in that northeast sector, so we're just inside of that sector, so we can, within 25 miles, go down to 3,000 feet, but initially right now it's only down to 10. So I'm going to use my class echo, and I'm going to select a lower altitude now, so select 10,000 feet. And I will select vertical speed, and you'll see vertical speed show up here on the autopilot, and I will start my descent now at 1,000 feet per minute. There's 1,000 feet per minute, and I'll bring some power back, keep the speed around 150. Yeah, so we'll monitor this descent, and then if I have to, I'll level off at 10,000, and then as soon as I'm within 25 miles, I will continue the descent down to 3,000. So I'll check in with you at the 25 mile mark. Okay, we're just coming up to 10,000 feet. We're 30 miles back, so looking pretty good on the descent here. The transition altitude was 12,000 feet, so we're already through that. So I set 1014, which was the barometric pressure we got from the weather. And yeah, so we might have to level off here for a minute or so, but not a big deal. Once we hit 25, we'll continue our descent down to 3,000 feet. We get our landing light on as we're approaching 10,000 feet. It's looking pretty good, so let's just see how this descent works out. Yeah, I think we're doing a little faster than 180 knot ground speed, so that's why we got down a little bit early, but not a big deal. So we just level off, and now we wait till the 25 miles. Down to 3,000. It's nighttime, but you can still see the high terrain to the south and nice and flat to the north. So we'll bring the power up just as we level off here. Got a couple miles to go. So we're altitude captured, still tracking the VOR. As soon as we hit 25, I'll vertical speed it down again. We'll set 3,000 feet, so we captured the altitude, so I can go in and set the 3,000 feet. And as soon as we hit 25, which we did right now, I'll reselect vertical speed and select back down 1,000 feet per minute. Bring the power back, and off we go. Below 150, and yeah, so be at that 3,000 feet when we hit the VOR, so I'll check back in with you just as we approach the VOR, and then we'll go through the procedure of flying the approach. So I'll see you again in a few minutes. Okay, we're just coming up to the VOR. We're 400 feet from leveling off. I lowered the rate of descent down to 700 feet per minute, so we should hit the altitude pretty close to the VOR. And then I got the chart up here too, just for reference, and it does show our position, so I can't disable that, but we're still going to fly the VFR procedure here, so or the VOR procedure. So we're leveling off. I'm going to bring the power up a little bit just to keep the speed. I'll keep it around 130. And then, so once we hit the VOR, we want to track out the reciprocal radial, which is 114. So I need to set my course for that. And we're on VOR 2, so I'll set 114. And we'll cross over the VOR and track that outbound till 8 miles. And we'll maintain this 3,000 feet the whole way. Okay, so we are coming up over top of the VOR. It switches over, no data, goes to roll mode, so I'm going to re-engage nav, and then we'll track the VOR. That's why I think it's better just to go heading momentarily and select till you're outbound. So now we're going to track outbound for 8 miles. Yeah, going heading select would have just prevented that chasing the needle there. So. Okay, we're back in VOR, we're tracking outbound 114, we're going to do that till 8 miles and maintain 3,000 feet. So I'll check in with you as we hit the 8 mile mark. Okay, we're just coming up on the 8 mile mark here, and what I'm going to do is select heading mode. And when we hit 8 miles, I'm just going to turn left and offset 45 degrees. So we'll do that now. Roughly 070 heading. And then I'll track outbound for about 45 seconds. So once I get on that heading. So we'll see our time here is 52. So I'll do it till we're on the heading, so I'll do it till about 53:15, and now I can change my course to my inbound course, which is 294. There's 294, and then once our time runs out, I'll do a right-hand turn to come back in to intercept that inbound course. Okay, so that's pretty good. So I'll turn right, come back in, to intercept that inbound track. So if you look over the approach here, like I said, as long as I stay within 25 miles of the VOR and north of this line here, so in the northeast sector, I can do anything I want pretty much at 3,000 feet and be safe and clear terrain. So that's what I'm doing. I'm kind of making myself a procedure turn here, even though it's not depicted on the chart. About a 250 heading on to re-intercept, and then what I'll do is I'll re-engage nav, and now it's going to intercept our inbound track of 294, and we're at 10 miles now. So once I'm within 8, I can go down to 1,500 feet, so I'll set that altitude in. Be ready to vertical speed it down. I'll start configuring too. There's the airport straight ahead. So I'll get the gear down, and first notch of flaps to approach. And then I'll select vertical speed, get the speed back to about 110 for the approach. And then as we hit 8 miles, I'll vertical speed it down to 1500 feet. And then our MDA altitude, look at the chart here, is 1100 feet. So after that, we can descend, after 4.9 miles, we can descend down to 1100 feet. So we're just coming up on it now. I'm going to engage vertical speed mode and watch our speed there. And get ready to dial it down, about 1,000 feet per minute. Okay, so that's good. So 1,000 feet per minute. Power back. And going down to 1,500 feet till we are at 4.9. So that should happen pretty quick. Power back a little bit more. Good, so gear is down, flaps are approach right now. Get our boost pumps on. Missed approach altitude is 3,000 feet, so we'll set that after we level off. So, if we're not at 4.9, I'll continue the descent down to 1,100 feet. Pretty good. So our altitude captured 1,500 feet, so I'm going to dial in 1,100 feet for my next altitude. And then we're coming up on 4.9. I'm going to re-engage vertical speed and we'll go down to 1,100 feet. Get our full flaps out. We'll set our altitude for 3,000 feet. With the missed approach. Oh no, sorry, I want to keep that in. So there's 1,100 feet coming up. I'm going to disengage the autopilot and just hand fly the last little portion here. Should have kept that 1,400 feet in until we were captured. Okay, so flaps are full. Gear is down. Speed's a little bit slow. I want to be more like 85 knots minimum. So a little low. I'm going to get back to a sight picture, which is normal for landing. Speed's a little low. Here we go. And good glide path. High, some power back. There we go. Power idle. Just touchdown. Brakes are working. And we'll turn off at the first exit we can up here. This is a pretty big airport. This is a 12,000 foot runway, so gotta turn up, just coming up here to the left. Go, clear the runway. And I'll just stop it here, and I think this is where we'll end the video. Don't need to see another shutdown, so just set the parking brake here, clear the runway, get the landing light off, taxi light on, and yeah, so welcome to Ashgabat in Turkmenistan. And yeah, that was a good trip, I think. We had great weather. Went back and played some old school IFR navigation using NDBs and VORs, and yeah, I see lots of techniques and procedures for that, and I'm just getting used to using this new Class Echo input device, and that was really cool. So yeah, if you'd like to see in-depth review on that, let me know in the comments. And like I said, I'll probably do one anyway, but if enough of you would like to see one, I'd definitely make that my next video. So gotta play around with it a little bit more and get a little bit more used to it there. So anyway, yeah, it was a good trip today. Knocked off about another 600 miles or so. So for our next trip, we're going to be departing out of here and heading further eastbound, and I'm not sure where we're going to end up. I think we might end up in Pakistan for the next leg of our trip. So anyway, it was a good trip. Thanks for joining me. Remember, if you liked today's video, hit the thumbs up, and if you'd like to see the next trip and see some more information on using this Class Echo device, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit for sign up for notifications, and you make sure you won't miss that video. So thanks for joining me. It's great having you on board today's flight, and we'll see you next time. Bandit out.